The story begins in a bitterly cold, remote region of America, across a completely desolate, snow-covered landscape in the dead of winter. A young girl is running for her life, stumbling and gasping for breath with eyes filled with sheer terror. For a brief second, she considers stopping to rest, but forces herself to keep moving forward. The next day, we are introduced to Cory Lambert, a skilled local hunter with sharp instincts. While out in the wilderness, he spots a pack of wolves threatening local livestock. With absolute precision, Cory takes a shot and kills one of the wolves, causing the rest of the pack to scatter instantly. Cory has promised to spend the entire day with his young son, Casey. When he calls out to him, Casey appears fully prepared, a rifle already slung over his shoulder. Cory takes his son to his maternal grandparents' house and tells him to wait there for a little bit while he checks out the surrounding area to make sure everything is okay. Cory is actually there on a job. His father-in-law had given him the coordinates of a location where a calf had recently gone missing, suspecting a mountain lion is roaming the area and posing a threat to their livestock. However, as Cory tracks the predator, he comes across a set of footprints that clearly do not belong to a mountain lion. Following the tracks deeper into the snow, he discovers a trail of blood. Cory immediately pulls specialized winter gear from his bag, draws his pistol, and cautiously follows the footsteps. He realizes these are the tracks of the fleeing girl from the night before, which haven't been completely covered by the fresh snow yet. Further along, the footprints become erratic, indicating someone struggling heavily to walk. Cory follows the blood trail until he finds her lying completely still, frozen to death with bare feet, and her mouth filled with blood and ice. Cory immediately calls for emergency assistance. Because of the heavy snowfall and treacherous road conditions, it will take the FBI a long time to reach the remote location. Ben, the tribal police chief, instructs Cory not to move the body until the FBI arrives to investigate the crime scene. However, Cory grows anxious, warning Ben that the intensifying blizzard will soon erase the tracks, making it impossible to determine where the girl came from or what she was running from. Cory asks for permission to investigate the tracks alone, but Ben refuses. Cory recognizes the victim as Natalie, though Ben insists on waiting for official confirmation after a proper investigation. Soon after, a vehicle arrives at the scene. Cory approaches it and finds a young woman in the driver's seat who introduces herself as Jane Banner, an FBI agent. Jane has traveled here completely alone and is utterly unprepared for the brutal winter weather, wearing only light clothing. Seeing an FBI agent arrive in a basic rental van surprises Ben. To keep her from freezing, Casey's grandmother reluctantly lends Jane some clothes belonging to her granddaughter. When Jane steps outside wearing them, Cory freezes in his tracks. The sight triggers painful memories of his own deceased daughter, making it clear that he, too, has suffered a devastating loss in the past. Once the blizzard passes, Cory tells Casey he will return in a few hours. Cory, Jane, and Chief Ben travel back to the crime scene on snowmobiles. Although the tribal police have already secured the perimeter, the threat of another sudden storm looms large. Ben and Cory continue to argue, with Cory insisting he knows the girl as Natalie. Jane inspects the body closely and notes that a forensics team is urgently needed. Cory points out that Natalie's home is nearby, yet no one has filed a missing persons report. The most baffling detail is why a local girl, familiar with the brutal climate, would flee into the freezing wilderness barefoot. When Jane asks for his professional opinion, Cory explains the grim reality that she was running for her life through the snow until she collapsed from exhaustion, and the sub-zero air rushing into her lungs caused a pulmonary hemorrhage, which ultimately killed her. Impressed by his tracking skills, Jane asks Cory to assist her in the investigation. Cory agrees, noting grimly that there isn't much difference between hunting animals and hunting humans. Later that night, Cory is seen casting his own bullets. Casey approaches him, having heard about Natalie, and asks if it is happening all over again. Unable to lie to his son, Cory cannot offer words of comfort. The next day, Jane learns why no missing report was filed. Natalie no longer lived with her parents, having moved in with her boyfriend upon turning 18. The medical examiner confirms that Natalie was severely assaulted before her death, though he cannot determine whether there was a single attacker or multiple. Her body bears several cuts, but the official cause of death matches Cory's deduction of a pulmonary hemorrhage. Based on the evidence, the examiner officially declares the case a homicide. Now, the team faces a massive hurdle because they need to find out where Natalie was running from, but they have no leads. A frustrated Jane realizes that if she submits this inconclusive report to her superiors, the FBI will pull her off the case, meaning no further federal aid will be provided. Determined to find answers, they immediately begin interrogations, starting with Natalie's father. He quickly grows irritated by Jane's questions, stating that his daughter lived with her boyfriend and never introduced him to the family, leaving them knowing nothing about her personal life. When Jane tries to enter the bedroom to speak with Natalie's grieving mother, Ben signals her to leave them alone. Ignoring the warning, Jane enters to find the mother completely broken, weeping silently in agony. Cory arrives at the house shortly after. When Natalie's father sees Cory, his anger softens. The two men share a profound profound, unspoken bond born of shared tragedy. They embrace, and Cory offers words of comfort, telling him that it feels easier to hold on to the pain sometimes. But after losing his own daughter, he learned that they have to remember the love they were given, not the pain of losing them. Martin breaks his silence and confesses that while he doesn't know much, his estranged son, Chip, who fell into a bad crowd with drugs and runs with the Little Feather Boys, might have answers. Despite his flaws, Natalie loved her brother deeply, and Chip might know something. Armed with this lead, Ben, Jane, and Cory head straight to the Little Feather Boys' territory. As they approach the house, loud music blares from inside. Ben warns Jane that there are 4 brothers in total, each more stubborn and dangerous than the last, and none of them will go down easy. Cory slips around to the back of the house to cut off any escape routes, while Ben and Jane approach the front door. A young man named Sam answers, visibly heavily intoxicated. He slurs that his other brother is in prison and that Chip isn't home. Then, without warning, Sam blindsides Ben and Jane by spraying them directly in the eyes with pepper spray. As the 2 officers stagger back, their vision blurred and burning, Cory acts instantly from behind. He grabs a nearby shovel and delivers a heavy blow, knocking Sam to the ground, while another boy stumbles and falls alongside him. Her eyes still stinging brutally, Jane draws her weapon and blindly clears the corner inside. Sam opens fire on her, and Jane immediately returns fire, unloading several rounds. Sam collapses to the floor, coughing violently. Jane kicks his gun away, keeping him covered at gunpoint just as Ben stumbles inside. Assessing Sam's critical state, Ben urges that they need to leave, but Jane insists on calling an ambulance to save him. Before she can, Sam takes his final breath. Ben walks out to the yard, with Jane following close behind, where Frank and Chip have already been detained by the backup team. Jane begins interrogating them, and the moment Chip learns of his sister's death, he completely shatters. He reveals a crucial piece of information. He knows exactly who Natalie's boyfriend was. Jane expects Chip to lead them to him, but Cory notices something else: fresh snowmobile tracks cutting through the winter landscape. Peering through his binoculars, Cory tracks the trail as it winds toward the exact mountain where Natalie's body was discovered. Oddly, the tracks lead up the mountain, but never come back down. Cory instantly senses that Chip is hiding the full truth and tells Jane that the snow is still preserving Natalie's story, but they must move fast before a fresh blizzard erases the evidence entirely. They follow the tracks until the dense tree-line blocks their snowmobiles, forcing them to proceed on foot. They don't have to walk far before the tracks abruptly stop. There, half buried in the snow, they find another corpse. The body is blood-stained and heavily scavenged by birds. By evening, the entire crime scene is swarming with law enforcement. Ben plans to pull the security camera footage from the site where Natalie's boyfriend worked, but the suspects currently in custody refuse to talk. Cory asks for a chance to break them, but Ben explains the legal reality. Even if Cory coaxes a confession out of them, it won't hold up in court without an officer present. However, Ben hints that they don't necessarily need an official confession if they can unearth a direct lead instead. When Jane steps aside to take a phone call, Cory presses Ben again, stating he has known Chip since he was a boy and might be able to get through to him. Reluctantly, Ben allows Cory to step in. Cory confronts Chip, who bitterly complains about how worthless their town is. Losing his patience, Cory grabs Chip by the throat, slams him against a vehicle, and confronts him with the brutal reality. The monsters who tore his sister apart are still walking free in the very town he was born in. Cory turns to walk away, and the weight of the truth finally breaks Chip. He confesses everything. Natalie's boyfriend is a man named Matt, who works as a security guard at a local oil drilling rig. Chip adds that if anyone knew the full story, it would have been Sam, unaware that Sam is already dead. Cory returns to Ben and Jane. Though Jane is anxious to know what Chip revealed, she respects the boundaries and doesn't ask. Ben suggests they meet at the drilling rig first thing in the morning, and Cory slips away without a word. The mangled corpse in the snow is soon officially identified as Matt, the drilling station security guard. Jane drives out to Cory's house to deliver the update, and Cory invites her inside to escape the biting cold. While Cory steps away to fetch some water, Jane notices his family photographs. Returning to the room, Cory points to a picture and softly shares that his daughter's name was Emily. After Jane expresses her deepest condolences, Cory opens up about the tragedy that tore his life apart. Years ago, while working out of town, Cory and his wife, Wilma, took a short trip, leaving 16-year-old Emily and her younger brother, Casey, home alone. That night, an uninvited party took place at their house. The next morning, Natalie called to report that Emily had vanished. A local cowboy eventually found Emily's body 20 miles away from the house, but the wildlife had scavenged her remains so severely that an autopsy couldn't determine the cause of death. Reliving the memory leaves Cory visibly shaken, his voice trembling, making Jane realize she may have pushed him too far. The following morning, Ben and a team of uniformed officers accompanied accompany Jane to Matt's drilling station. Cory takes an alternate route, expertly using his snowmobile to track the physical imprints left in the winter terrain. Arriving ahead of the team, Jane briefs the reinforcement officers on the mission. Their primary objective is to search Matt's trailer for any evidence linking the site to Natalie's murder. Cory is instructed to use his radio if he discovers anything unusual. Moving deeper into the snow, he tracks animal paw prints until he discovers the carcass of a dead animal. Meanwhile, at the drilling station, the security guards tell Jane and Ben that they were actually on the verge of filing a missing persons report for Matt themselves. They claim Matt has been missing for 2 or 3 days following a major argument with his girlfriend. Jane notices that 2 of the guards have visible facial injuries. They quickly brush it off, making excuses about the hazards of their job and claiming the company doesn't provide helmets. The site's supervisor finally grants permission to search the trailers. Peering through his binoculars from a distance, Cory realizes that the snowmobile tracks he has been tracking lead directly past the trailer site where the officers are currently investigating. As they walk toward the trailers, one of the guards casually asks Jane if Natalie was the one who filed Matt's missing report. When Jane confirms that Natalie was indeed their source, the guard slips up, replying, "Then you guys must have found Natalie's dead body." This instantly raises red flags. The news of Natalie's murder had never been made public. Law enforcement had only released information stating an unidentified female body was found. Realizing they have walked into a trap, Ben's officers immediately begin positioning themselves as the guard draws his weapon, triggering a tense standoff. Jane tries to de-escalate the situation while asserting authority, warning them that she is FBI and that if they make a wrong move, there is nowhere in the country they can hide. Meanwhile, Cory tries to contact Ben over the radio, but receives no response. Sensing imminent danger, he grabs his rifle and sprints toward the trailers on foot. Reaching the main trailer, Jane is informed that another guard named Pete is asleep inside after working the night shift. At this moment, a flashback reveals the horrific truth of what happened that night. Natalie had arrived at the trailer unannounced to surprise Matt. Overjoyed to see each other, they embraced and lay on the bed, happily discussing their future plans of moving away together. Their intimacy was shattered by the arrival of the other guards, who had returned early from town. As Natalie was getting dressed, a heavily intoxicated Pete barged in. Seeing Natalie, he began harassing her. Matt shoved him back and pulled the curtain shut, but a drunk and aggressive Pete returned to confront him. When another guard insulted Natalie, she slapped him, causing Pete to viciously rip her pants. An enraged Matt fought back to protect her, but the guards overwhelmed him, cracking a bottle over his head and knocking him unconscious. They then pinned Natalie down and brutally assaulted her. When Matt regained consciousness and desperately tried to fight them off again, Natalie used the distraction to escape through the door. Glancing back, she saw Matt completely surrounded. Fleeing into the freezing night, she ran into the snow until her lungs gave out. Back in the present, Jane knocks on the locked trailer door. A guard named Curtis stands outside, acting completely oblivious. Suddenly, a shotgun blast erupts through the door, sending Jane flying backward. The ambush triggers a chaotic, close-quarters gunfight. Lying wounded on the ground, Jane manages to fire several rounds into a guard's leg, killing him. From inside the trailer, someone opens fire with an automatic weapon, and Jane watches in horror as Chief Ben is gunned down. Curtis, still standing, strips Jane of her weapon and prepares to execute her. Before he can pull the trigger, a long-range sniper shot rings out, killing him instantly. It is Cory. From his vantage point, Cory systematically takes down 2 more guards. Only 2 men remain inside the trailer. Cory kills one, leaving only Pete, who smashes through a window to escape. Jane fires at Pete from beneath the trailer, but he manages to flee into the dense woods. Cory rushes to Jane's side, carrying her into the trailer and placing her on a sofa. Barely clinging to life, Jane demands the radio, knowing she will only survive if an emergency helicopter is dispatched immediately. After broadcasting the distress signal, Cory tells her he is going after Pete, adding grimly that even if he catches him, the man will not be coming back alive. Jane gives her silent approval, fully understanding what Cory intends to do. Pete runs blindly through the deep mountain snow, gasping for breath and completely exhausted. In a panicked bid for survival, he frantically waves his pistol around, searching the white landscape. He cannot see his hunter, as Cory is completely camouflaged in a solid white winter tactical suit. Because of the snow all around, Pete could not see Cory at all. Cory suddenly ambushed him and knocked him unconscious. When Pete regained consciousness, his body was inside a bag, his hands and feet were tied, and his face was covered in blood. Cory said in a calm voice, "Right now, we are on the highest mountain." Pete replied, "I want to talk." Cory sat down quietly on a nearby tree stump and said, "Yes, I am sitting right here to listen to you." Pete slowly moved into a sitting position, and that is when his eyes fell on his bare feet. His shoes were gone. Seeing this, he panicked. panicked. Cory watched him silently and said, "Start speaking. You have very little time." Pete began to speak nervously. "Yes, I made a mistake. I forced myself on that girl. I even killed Matt. Please take me to jail. I am ready to face the punishment for what I did." Cory replied, "There is no law here. There is only me." After hearing his confession, Cory pulled out his blade and cut the rope tying Pete's hands and feet. He said directly, "If you can reach the highway, you will be free." That was the same chance Natalie got. That poor girl ran barefoot in the snow for 6 miles to escape monsters like you. Now it's your turn, you dog. Pete still could not understand the situation. He still thought Cory would take him to jail. Right then, Cory placed his rifle right next to Pete's ear and fired. Terrified by the sound of the gunshot, Pete started running like a madman. The terrain was completely against him, filled with mountains, steep slopes, and deep snow. He would fall down, then start crawling on all fours, running exactly like a wild animal. Standing at a distance, Cory just watched him. After a little while, Pete's lungs gave out. He collapsed on his back in the snow, gasping for air, and slowly died a painful death. Cory did not even need to fire a single bullet at him. Later, Cory went to the hospital to visit Jane. Jane was still alive. She looked a bit weak, but was going to recover completely. Cory made a small joke, and she smiled. Cory had also brought a stuffed toy for her. After this, Jane said emotionally, "Only one thing keeps running through my mind. How did that poor girl run barefoot for 6 miles? What kind of agony must she have gone through in this freezing cold?" To this, Cory simply replied, "I made the ones who forced her to run the same way." Later, Cory went to Natalie's father, told him the entire story, and advised him not to distance himself from his son because he needs him right now. Hopefully, everything will be better in their lives moving forward. So, in your opinion, did Cory do the right thing or the wrong thing by taking the law into his own hands? Do let me know in the comments. See you in the next video.